Today we learn a new math vocabulary word, and that math vocabulary word is decompose. Decompose. Can you say it? Decompose. Decompose. Try it again. Decompose. Decompose simply means to break or split into smaller parts. Here's a video to help us further understand our new math vocabulary word, decompose. I have 10 cubes here, and I'd like to talk to you about how we can decompose these 10 cubes. 10 can be decomposed into a lot of different ways. I can decompose 10. I just split it apart. I just broke it into 3 and 7. So one way we can decompose 10 is 3 and 7. Decompose just simply means to break apart. I just broke apart this 10. I decomposed 10 into 5 and 5. Now Miss Jacob's about to get a little gross on you, so just stay with me. I want you to picture in your minds right now a part whole model, or picture a number bond. What goes at the top of that number bond? At the top of that number bond, or at the top of the part whole, is the whole amount. 10 is the whole amount. So when Miss Jacob decomposed this rod of 10 into 5 and 5, I want you to think about Miss Jacob's nose being the top of your number bond. Or think about Miss Jacob's nose being the top of the part whole model. At the top of the part whole model represents the whole amount. And since we started with 10, 10 represents the whole amount. So if it's a number bond and my nose is a circle, 10 would go in that circle. And a number bond would have 2 circles at the end of the cubes. So at the end of these cubes, I just decomposed 10 into 5 and 5. Got that picture? Whole, part, and part. 10, 5, and 5. Okay, that was pretty gross, wasn't it? But I hope you got it. Okay, here's 10 again. And now this time we will decompose 10 into, 3 and 7. I think we did that. 10 can be decomposed into 1 and 9. We're just simply breaking 10 apart. That's what decompose means. Oh, look at that. Actually, 10 could be decomposed into 3 and 2 and 5. It could be. But for today's lesson, we're talking about a part and a part and a whole. Okay? So 10 could also be decomposed into 2 and 8. Decompose simply means to break apart. So why do we decompose? Well, we decompose, or we break numbers apart, because we want to make those numbers easier to add or subtract. In today's seesaw activity, you will decompose some numbers. You'll be given a number, and you'll break that number, or you'll split that number into smaller parts. Here are some examples of what you can expect to see in seesaw today. These are ways that we might decompose 12 using the number bond models below. So 12 can be decomposed into 2 parts, 9 and 3. That's one way that I could decompose 12. Here's another way that I could decompose 12. I could break 12 into 2 smaller parts, and those 2 smaller parts might be 7 and 5. So 12 can be decomposed into 7 and 5. Here's another way that I might decompose 12. 12 could be decomposed into 6 and 6. Now I want you to remember that the whole, the number at the top represents the whole amount, and the 2 parts can be added together in order to get your whole amount. So keep that in mind. So when you decompose the whole amount into these smaller parts here, you'll need to ask yourself, does, in this case, 9 plus 3 equal 12? If 9 plus 3 does not equal 12, then you know you need to get busy doing something different because the decomposition, or the way that you decompose that number, is not right. This part plus this part must equal the whole amount. And that's in every situation. 7 plus 5 equals 12. So when I decompose 12, these two parts must total the whole amount. All right, so those are some ways that we could decompose 12. And I also want you to know that this number bond model, it's also the same as the part-part-whole model. When you were in first grade, you were exposed to the part-part-whole model. This number bond is the same thing. This is your whole, this is your part. Part plus part equals whole. In your part-part-whole model, this might be a rectangle, and these might be rectangles or squares down here. Let's take a look at some ways that we can decompose 14 using the number bond models below. So here's 14, that's our whole amount, and we can decompose 14 into 8 plus 6. Here's 14. 14 can be decomposed into 9 and 5. 9 plus 5 does equal 14. 14 can be decomposed into 7 plus 7. So we can take 14 and we can break it into smaller parts in a lot of different ways. And when you do your seesaw activity today, the way you decompose 14 may be different from the way that you decompose the number that you're given. It could be 14, it could be another number, but it will be different. When you decompose, it could be different from your neighbor, just as long as these two parts do equal the whole amount. There are lots of different ways to decompose numbers. So in today's lesson, we learned a new math vocabulary word, and that math vocabulary word is decompose. Decompose means to break or split into smaller parts. In tomorrow's lesson, we will decompose numbers to help us better understand this doubles plus one strategy. See you then.